We're seeing wildfires, we're seeing floods, we're seeing gigantic storm surges. Terrifying. So all of these things, if we just talk about it, I don't think it's going to change. But if we work to bring people's lives into relationship with natural systems, each person and communities have the chance to work together to change it. Thank you for inviting us, and we're very happy to present a little bit about Common Land Foundation and very large-scale holistic ecosystem restoration. My name's John Liu, and this is Aude Perron. So, first of all, Common Land is about 11 years old now, and it started to create the ability to do large-scale ecosystem restoration. And I think we hear here at the COP, we hear a lot of people talking about policy and theory and what could we do and so on. But what Common Land has done is actually begin to do the work of restoring large-scale degraded landscapes. Basically, there is a theory around this, which is called the 4 returns, 3 zones, 20 years, or 4 returns for short. And it's a holistic framework for ecological restoration by people and businesses. So this is not simply a volunteer effort. This is about business cases that allow people to do restoration. Now, we have a lot of information, but a lot of people don't know this information. So it's really quite important for people to learn that they can do restoration themselves, that there's something that can be done. And we see a lot of anxiety. We have people who have climate anxiety, young people. We have scientists who are weeping at the dangers that we face. But what we've seen, and in my research, is that it's possible to rehabilitate large-scale damaged ecosystems. So I presented this in 2009 at the Talberg Forum. That was the same year that the Copenhagen COP15 took place. And so this was shown on the BBC in a film called Hope in a Changing Climate that showed that we can do this. And now there's already, 2009 was, how many years ago is that? That's like 15 years ago, isn't it? So basically, if we haven't been doing ecosystem restoration for the last 15 years, we've been wasting our time because we know that there is a methodology for doing this. So if people talk about the importance of climate change, they need to know that it's possible to do something, and that's not just scientists or just business people, it's everyone. So this is a highly developed thinking, and it works in many parts of the world. So Common Land, over this period, since its beginning, it's now 11 years old as a foundation, has created core restoration zones together with partners. And they've done this in South Africa, in Spain, in Australia, in the Netherlands, and in India. And now they're working in 23 different countries to discuss how they're doing this. And again, I'll suggest that this is about landowners and farmers and the governments and capital formations and the ability to bring everyone together to make some sort of a plan where it's possible to get everyone working together. And I think we need to think about the name, common land, because this is really about the fact that the earth is there for all of us. We're all indigenous to the earth. We all live on the earth. And there have been many mistakes, obviously, over historical time. But now if we're recognizing what these mistakes are, we need to go beyond just discussing the mistakes and look at the solutions. And restoration has made it possible to do that. So the 4 returns are looking at a business model that is not just return on investment. So if we look at our economic system and we see that the GDP and the return on investment is what the investors want, but those investors are not everyone. And also the return on investment is not a complete view of what's happening, because if we're losing hydrological regulation, or we're losing biodiversity, or we're losing fertility in the soil, or we're causing climate changes, then actually the profit in that monetary measurement is not accurate. And in economics, this has been considered as externalities. So that they're thinking that these bits are not part of the economic reasoning, and they just want to have a return on investment. But actually, if you factor in what they're calling externalities, you're bankrupt before you even start. So the 4 returns changes that. And then it discusses 4 returns instead of simply a return on investment. So, I mean, investment's working, really, and industry is working to create giant buildings and to create infrastructure and to do all these things, but it's just destructive as well. So if we can change that model to be 4 returns instead of just a return on investment, what are the other 3? And the first is the return of inspiration, so that there's meaning in life. If we're talking about people just as workers or consumers, this is not really accurate either in terms of people's spiritual and psychological health and their physical health. So the return of inspiration is a big part of this. Another part is social cohesion. So if I think about human beings, I think actually we are a social species. We're able to work together, and by working together, we can accomplish a great deal. So if we're working together for the rights and the improvement for everyone, then I think we're in another space. So this requires us to have a collective intelligence and a collective intention. So the second of these 4 returns is the return of social cohesion, where we can understand that we're together and we have to work together. And the third is the return of natural capital. So if we're destroying the earth by extraction and overconsumption and waste and externalizing the impacts of what we do, we need to change that. We need to reverse this and not destroy the natural systems, but to restore them. And so Common Land has also been working on doing this. That's the key factor, not only for the growth of Common Land, but also for the growth of productivity. Because as my research showed in China, if you restore the ecological system, you bring back fertility, you bring back hydrological regulation, you bring back biodiversity, and this is much more productive. So it changes the economy of everything. And because of this, if you do all these things, it's natural that you can get a return on investment. So this makes sense not only for the investors, but it makes sense for the local farmers, the local people and communities, for the society at large and for the earth at large. So this is the basis of Common Land, the 4 returns. And now I'm going to share with you those QR codes. So please, if you want to have these QR codes in Arabic, in English, and in Spanish, then you can find this information about Common Land. So now I want to ask my colleague, because she is joined in a movement that's called Ecosystem Restoration Communities. So tell us what you've learned in the last year about ecosystem restoration communities.
What I've learned as I've been meeting with many leaders from different countries in different continents is that there is a lot of people locally that I've taken the ownership to say we are part of the solutions. And together they are uniting to bring the solutions wherever it's needed. So to me, being connected to many leaders in different continents really gives me hope, because I'm seeing many people taking the lead, saying instead of being waiting for the solutions, they said, okay, if we gather and if we bring our knowledge together, our resources together, we can just make it happen. And it is happening. And it is happening everywhere around the world. And it's empowering people to just take action with the resources they have. And the more they bring their resources together, the more they get resources to bring their work to another stage. So that's something very key I've learned as meeting with all these people around the world. There are some of them here in the room that I can see that took the lead and said, we want to make it happen. We don't have to wait for anything.
Well, I think, where are the places that you feel that you've been working in that you feel really strongly have a chance to do something great?
I personally chosen to focus more in Africa right now. And what I'm learning from several communities, from several countries of Africa, is that they are really still strongly committed to their values, to their traditions, to their land, and strongly bringing their voice to their governments as well, with not willing to lose their own power, not willing to lose their own cultures and traditions. And I really like that, because I think in our society, Africa can show another model of development that not necessarily will take away their power, but rather bring their power even more strongly. And yeah, that's why I chosen Africa, because I really resonate. And as coming from a European community, I myself lacked the sense of why are we living in this planet? Where are our strong connections to the earth? Where are our strong connections to our community around us? So in that sense, I have a lot of hope and faith that there is a commitment to weave community building and ecosystem restoration and care for the earth with value. Because I think in this society we miss value. And I like the value I found where I meet the local communities in different countries of Africa.
So you didn't really mention countries, but Somalia is a place where we have been working with a group that has 150 hectares in Somalia. It's called Dryland Solutions, and we're working to put in a center there. And in Cameroon, we've been working with the winner of the Wangari Maathai Award, and she has actually many, many women's groups in different countries in Africa. But in Cameroon, the government has given her 187 hectares. So we're working to put a restoration center there for the women's groups to teach other women's groups. In Kenya, the young people, I'm on the advisory committee of the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, and the young people have chosen to do this kind of work because they can have an immediate result. And I think it's really important because when you come to these meetings and you see all these people talking and you consider how much money was spent to create this meeting, and that this is the 28th meeting of the convening of the parties, and we're still questioning what to do. And, you know, when we look at this, it's clear that there's an existential threat to human civilization and that we're facing very serious consequences. And it's not in the future, it's now. So we're seeing wildfires, we're seeing floods, we're seeing gigantic storm surges, the possibility of ocean acidification, thermal expansion, the cryosphere melting, terrifying. So all of these things, if we just talk about it, I don't think it's going to change. But if we work to bring people's lives into relationship with natural systems, if we understand that when you expose the surface of the Earth to direct solar radiation, you're massively elevating the temperatures. So when we understand these kinds of things, each person and communities have the chance to work together to change it. And this is more satisfying. So we're recommending that people come together and make communal gardens, not community gardens where everybody has a little plot, but communal gardens where everybody's working together. And in these, they start to grow the most endangered species in the region. So they turn these gardens into botanical sanctuaries. But they're not privately owned, they're collective. Everybody in the community is part of it. And the top horticulturalists, the top gardeners can be in the lead. And everybody, if we go gardening, we're very quickly going to know who's the better gardener. So we want to ask those people, please help all of the community to do the best. And then everybody has a chance to become a master gardener because they're working with the master gardeners. And then for the botanical sanctuary, but that's only part of it. Another part of it is food forests. So by creating forests, which are also perennial systems, which are also have food, we're both mitigating and adapting to climate change, and we're generating food. And at the edges, we can restore wild areas with wildlife. It's this kind of thing. We can also put in those centers cultural stages where we can have dancing and music and poetry and theater and films and lectures. And we can put there creator spaces with woodworking, metalworking, mechanics, and design and industrial sewing and whatever's ceramics. And we can have co-working environments so people from all over the world can come and work there and share their knowledge and their experiences and their management capability and their capital. And in doing that, the whole community will grow. And those places, we've gone from 0 communities 6 years ago to 65 communities. So learning how to do large-scale ecosystem restoration, learning how to use blended finance the way Common Land is doing it, with private investors, with public funds, with philanthropic funds, and with the energy and work of the people, and remembering that the people's investment is their lives, and it's more valuable than any of the money. So if we all do this, we can start now. We don't have to wait until the scientists decide what is the best way to go. We know we can lower surface temperatures by restoring the vegetative cover. We know we can protect ourselves by increasing the biodiversity. We know that we can feed everybody if we just share.
I would just add, like what you were mentioning before, looking back to our commons, what as individuals, as a human species, belongs to all of us, and reconnect from there amongst culture, amongst countries, and really seeing how is that meaningful, specific to the place. We all have different cultures and traditions, but how we can express that and show that it is possible if we look at what do we have in common and we reconnect from there, then we can bring solutions that are good for our soils and for our souls as well. And that is really powerful. That is really powerful if it's done locally and globally in parallel. And then we can contrast the solutions we bring. There are global things that are going on for all of us, but then we adapt it to every and each place. And this, only the people from the ground know what's needed.
We all have a role to play, and we really need all to collaborate with one another. So if you are interested in Common Land Foundation, it's commonland.com. If you're interested in the Ecosystem Restoration Camps and Communities movement, go to ecosystemrestorationcommunities.org or erc.earth. And welcome. Let's all work together and make sure that the next generation of life has a fully functional Earth. Thank you.